Banner of Japan. Under this banner, the Japanese military was building their militaristic plans. Plans of imperialist looting, fires and torture, shootings and gallows, robbery and violence. Villain banner, whose hands are burned with the blood of defenders Port Arthur, Far Eastern partisans. Blood of the people of Nanjing and Shanghai, Soviet soldiers in Lake Kazan and the Fokingo River. More recently, Japan ruled over the fields and fells of the Manchuries, over cities of China, over the expanses of the southern seas, over the jungle of Burma, and now a million Japanese army in Manchuria, defeated by the Red Army. Ashes and debris turned Manchurian bastions of Japan. The war came to the capital of Japan. In the ashes and fallen lies the capital of Japan, Tokyo. Let's see what country this is, who for decades prepared an invasion of our homeland and admitted herself defeated. The Kawasaki area is located between Tokyo and Yokohama, one of the centers of military industry. Weapons of Japanese imperialism were forged here, this main hotbed of militarism and aggression in the East. Japan is the country of the largest military industry. Country of stockbrokers and speculators, banks and concerns, business and military districts, where plans were hatched and developed, conquest and division of the world. It's the country's largest navy, third largest in the world. She created a powerful attack bomber aircraft. She contained a multi-million army. But for the war for world domination, not only the army was created, fascist theory was cultivated, the divine supremacy of the Japanese race over other peoples. Emperor of Japan Hirohito Tenno. This man with glasses in general uniform, under Japanese law, was considered a god and was the unlimited ruler of Japan. Japanese people. To all these people have been told, you are subjects of the Emperor of God. Therefore you are higher and better than all the peoples of the earth. You have to subdue yourself, other countries, and erect a Japanese roof over the world. You will be led by the Emperor, told them to obey him in everything. Sacrifice everything for him. Pray to him. It was a sly tale. The propaganda of class peace and aggression was built on it, and the education of soldiers was carried out. Raising a soldier started in infancy. Age 2 years. The world for him is limited to the back of his mother's head, but his parents already bought him that sword. Age 5. That's what they sing. Let's go out to sea, scatter corpses waves. Going out to the mountains, covered with corpses of grass. The whole world will be under a Japanese roof. Age 7. Worship the rising sun flag. With it starts, and this ends their school day. Age 11 years. Geography lesson. Japanese Sakamoto tutorial. Published in December of the 42nd year. Compiled in the form of questions and answers. Teacher show me student. Borders of the Japanese Empire. So now show me the boundaries of the Japanese spirit. Student at Japanese spirit wide boundaries. Mr. Teacher. Show them off. They go from the Kara Sea along the Ural Ridge, through the Caucasus and Kurdistan, cover Manchuria, China, India, Burma, Thai, Philippines, Australia, New Guinea, and the Pacific Islands. For it is said by our wise men, what is yours then yours, but does not prevent to buy something else. Age 16. First learn how to beat with a stick. Age 18 years. Last grinding. Learn how to stab with a bayonet. Age 20 years. Beat, rape, shoot. Everything will say goodbye in the name of great Japan. So turned out Japanese soldier, heart of a robber, and with modern weapons. So from a young age to old age inspired the Japanese, that their divine purpose is to conquer the whole world. Half a century Japan tried to assert its dominance over the peoples of Asia. In the year 1894, she attacked China, trying to capture the Starma to further penetrate the mainland. This war ended with the defeat of the whale. Japan got Taiwan and Pescadorian Islands. Later her colony became Korea. On a winter February night, 1904, Japanese squadron under Admiral Toga, without declaring war, unexpected and treacherous, crept up to the Russian fortress, Port Arthur, and applied. The Russian squadron there suffered serious losses. So the Russian-Japanese War started, first aggression of Japan against our country. Port Arthur, Russian warships stood here. Sebastopol, Ritvizin, Tsarevich, Palata attacked, while Japanese diplomats were in St. Petersburg talking about peace and friendship. At these heights, bordering a deep bay of the Yellow Sea, besieged Russian army for 11 months, fought with the 200,000 army of the Japanese general, feet time, preserved the remnants of concrete casemates, were almost without shells, almost without weapons and provisions. With selfless courage stood to the death of a Russian soldier. Bad weather and winds, many decades, crawled over these shelters and sandbags. Batteries which first opened fire on the Japanese Skadra. Vintage movie shots. First cameramen filmed soldiers. Russia has not forgotten the heroic feats of its sons. Still, the people sing songs about cruise reveries, about sailors who died in an unequal battle with an entire Japanese tablecloth. Monument to Fedi and Wasi. To sailors Monona's guarding, history didn't save us their last names, but immortalized their exploits. When the whole Minas crew died, they sank the ship. They preferred death to the shame of captivity. Many graves of Russian soldiers, scattered across the fields, ravines, and Manjure hills. Countless feats have been accomplished by these people, on land and at sea. And yet Russia was defeated then. Here's the original of the Portsmouth Treaty. Royal diplomats Count Witte and Baron Rosen made this treaty. Japan rejected southern Sakhalin from Russia. Established in the Kuril Islands, closed for Russian ships' exits to the eastern water and hence ways to Kamchatka and Chukotka. Besides, the Tsarist government gave Japan Port Arthur. This defeat left in the minds of the Russian people hard memories. We remember this. In 1918, Japanese military, taking advantage of hostile then attitude to the Soviet country of England, France, and the United States, and relying on them, second time attacked our homeland. Japanese landed troops in Vladivostok. They thought that this time, the Soviet Far East will be easy prey for them. They were throwing division after division inland. At the call of the Leninist Party, stood beside the Young Red Army, legendary Far Eastern partisans. They were led into battle by Sergei Lazov. "4 years day and night, summer and winter, the flames of war raged, from Okhotsk to government property, and from Vladivostok to Baikal. Did not help the Japanese interventionists nor selected divisions, almost half of their entire army, neither millions of yen invested in this bloody affair. Japanese forced to clean up, but there was a terrible trace of their bloody deeds. Thousands of Soviet people were tortured in dungeons, shot. In the furnace of the locomotive was burned partisan leader Sergei Lazov. We didn't forget, and this Japanese Emperor's Palace. In July 1927, quiet abode, then Prime Minister General Tanaka appeared. Here he handed to the Japanese Emperor his secret memorandum, where his final, formulated long-standing plans for Japanese aggression. Tanaka wrote it's time to act. First hit on Manchuria, second by Mongolia, then China, further India, islands of the southern seas seaside, Siberian, Ural. That's what Tanaka's memorandum represented. In 1931st Japanese military launched a plan of aggression. She struck China. Occupied Manchuria, which has always been a tidbit for the Japanese. Because Manchuria is bred for soldiers, wool for army uniforms, coal, phosphorus, lead copper, cast iron for weapons, and finally, by its geographical location, Manchuria was a knife in the heart of the Soviet Far East. Japanese Parliament in Tokyo. Speaking in Parliament, Japanese ministers did not skimp on lush promises to the people of Manchuria. Japan promises to create an independent and prosperous Manchurian Empire, and they did everything as promised. Created a sham Manchu Empire. Put on the throne of the emperor, His Majesty Emperor Puppet Poo, and finding a minister. But under the long master of Manchuria was Japanese warrior. Japan promises extend your heartfelt care to Manchurian people. This is how she spread that heart care. She built hundreds of prisons, and behind the walls, here tortured and killed everyone suspected of disagreeing with the Japanese order. She heartily took care of old age and guarded childhood. Japan promises free and joyful work to the peoples of Manchuria. Shoemaker, street tailor, bookseller, magician, merchant, peddler, rickshaw. Each of them earned a cup of rice a day. Yes, and then not every time. And in order not to starve, they were ready for anything. Work hands were at Manchuria, cheaper and tireless machines. And everything, from a simple stone house to powerful factories, power plants, huge military enterprises, Japanese built slaves with Chinese hands. One of the lodging houses in Harbin, last refuge for those who in Japanese jobs replaced the car with him. Japan promises to take care of the development of the people, high spiritual qualities. This is how she took care of high spiritual qualities. In the Chinese library housed police department. Chinese gymnasium turned into Japanese Army Division headquarters. Schools empty. A different kind of culture is encouraged. Neighborhoods opium smoked. brothels. She is 16 years old. She's sold here by her impoverished parents for a bag of rice. Japan promises to create a peaceful paradise based on morality and humanity. This is how she created this peaceful paradise. The land used to belong to the Chinese. Now she moved on to the Japanese. They leased it to the peasants, and the Chinese harvested no longer for themselves. Galleon livestock feed. Used to Chinese eat rice. Now he's eating galleon, because rice is eaten by Japanese soldiers. Used to horse eat golan. Now he's eating a straw, because golan is eaten by people. Now the horse is weak, and the man works instead of the horse. This is a Japanese paradise for workers. Paradise for their wives and children. Mirror of happiness. According to belief, it drives out grief. Grief will come see his reflection, will get scared and run away. But grief was not afraid of its reflection. It walked freely through the yards. Hunger and death mowed down people. To heaven, heaven, from Japanese paradise. The Japanese hid true goals. The new order in Mongolia. For 14 years of his reign, Japanese military created a military bridgehead in Manchuria against the Soviet. 17 fortified areas were built, grouped mainly in 3 directions of Halar: Saluish, Sungarisko, Sakhalin, and Seaside. On these powerful knots, built by the last word, fortification equipment relied on large military groups of the Japanese. The number of Japanese occupation forces in Manchuria in 1931st year, 1,000 soldiers in 1937, 200,000 soldiers in 1941, 1,000,000 soldiers. This is Kwantung Army color. The beauty and pride of the Japanese armed forces. Educated, trained, and trained, specifically for war with the Soviet Union. Simultaneously with military bridgehead against the Soviet Union, Japan has taken a number of diplomatic steps against our homeland. Japanese diplomats signed a series of pacts with Nazi Germany, criminal union, aggressor countries against peace and humanity, took the shape of the notorious Axis of Berlin. Rim. Tokyo. In the year 1938, Japanese military decided that the long-awaited moment to attack the Soviet Union came the evening of the 29th of July. The Japanese unexpectedly crossed the border in the area of Lake Hazen. The First Red Banner Army got an order to throw the Japanese outside our state border. 6th of August, 15 o'clock. 6th of August, 17 o'clock. 6th of August, 20 hours. Order executed. Aggressors thrown out of our country. Soviet people did not forget and hasten. 11th of May, 1939. Japanese attack East River's Halkın Gol to the Mongolian People's Republic related to the USSR Treaty of Mutual Assistance. Future Marshal of the Soviet Union, Georgy Konstantinovich Zhukov, embarked on a destruction plan. The Japanese forces. 12th of August. 20th of August. 30th of August. The Japanese troop grouping was defeated. Soviet command allowed the Japanese to remove the corpses. Japanese Minister Araki was telling them, "You will swim in the waters of Baikal. Those waters are cold, but don't be discouraged. Warm apartments in Siberian cities are waiting for you. It will be strengthening. Wellness walk for Japanese spirit. Come back from a walk." June 22, 1941. Hitler's Germany treacherously attacked our homeland. In a few months, Japan attacked the base, United States Pacific Fleet, Pearl Harbor, and repeating the same insidious technique. How she attacked once Port Arthur. So began the War of Japan with America and England. The Japanese-German military conspiracy. Japanese military won a number of major victories. The Japanese captured the Filipino Islands. Went to Manila. Possessed by the UK naval base Singapore. Occupied Dutch India. Entered Burma. In northwest Japan, approached a wheelchair. In the south, was preparing to plunge a bayonet into Australia. In the west, knocked on the gate of India. At the same time, she hypocritically declared neutrality in relation to the USSR. This is what that neutrality looked like. Despite the war with America, England, and China, Japan kept on our border most of his army. Japanese divisions only waited for the signal to oppose our country. Stalingrad should have served as a signal. Fall of Stalingrad. Critical days of the Great Patriotic War. Germans rushing to the Volga, fighting on the streets of Stalingrad. and the Japanese are waiting for the fall of Stalingrad to perform. Blood pours for every 5 of our land, and the Japanese are waiting. So in the hardest days of the domestic war, in the days of Stalingrad, in the days when the Nazis were already anticipating deadly coverage of Moscow from the east, our far eastern divisions were constrained by the so-called Japanese neutrality. And this our people have not forgotten in Japan. Past the harsh days came, and on our street holiday, Red Army defeated the Hitler hordes and friended banner of victory over Berlin. The monstrous Hitler war machine was crushed, but Japan was still at war. By this time, the troops of our allies won a number of victories in the Pacific theater of war. American and then English aviation repeatedly attacked the Japanese islands. The Japanese people paid dearly for the war, which was started by his greedy rulers. Thousands of homeless people, burners and refugees huddled in the ruins, roamed the roads. They were promised a Japanese roof over the whole world. Now they lost the roof even over their head. The people were silent. But the minister said, if white devils dare to land on our islands, then the Japanese spirit will go to its great citadel in Manchuria untouched. Valiant Imperial Kwantung Army. In Manchuria, an indestructible military bridgehead, we will resist in Manchuria for at least 100 years. And really, leaning on a colossal operational space, about 2.5 million square kilometers, leaning on his Manchurian arsenal, Telephony could wage a protracted war and hope to resist new blows. She has preserved in the Manchuria largest energy base, metallurgical and oil refineries, coal mines, king warehouses, and finally, untouched Kwantung Army. Only entry into the war of the Soviet Union could scatter to dust Japanese militarists' plans to prolong the war, loyal to her allied duty, striving to bring about world peace, and free the Japanese people from further victims and suffering. The Soviet government announced on August 8th he considers himself at war with Japan. From the 9th of August, Ambassador of the Soviet Union to Japan, heading to Toga's foreign minister, to hand him a statement from the Soviet government. Entry of the USSR into the war with Japan was a fair act, defending the interests of the Soviet Union and all the countries that were subjected to Japanese aggression. Thousands of kilometers of wild taiga, deaf taiga silence, fells as far as the eye, This is the border of the SSR and Manchuria. In these vast spaces was destined to play out battle. As a result, the Red Army liberated the population of northeast China, Inner Mongolia, and North Korea from Japanese enslavers. Few hours left before hostilities start. Commander-in-Chief rate the Red Army in the Far East, east of Marshal Vasilevsky. Marshal of the Soviet Union Alexander Vasilevsky. Member of the Military Council rate Colonel General Shikin. Chief of Staff Colonel General Ivanov. A little more time will pass, and the plan to defeat Japanese predators will be put into action. That's what that plan was. 3 fronts simultaneously must hit the enemy. Trans-Baikal Front. Cupid's Second Far Eastern Front. Primary, the First Far Eastern Front. Trans-Baikal and the First Far Eastern Front. From the west and east and connecting in Chanchan area. Cut the Manchuria into 2 parts, surrounding and isolating thus the entire Japanese Kwantung with all its fortified areas. Simultaneously, the Second Far Eastern hits from north to south, dissecting Japanese groups located on the Amur and Sungari. Trans-Baikal Front has 3 directions. First, on Chanchan, on his way Halun, Arshan fortified area and mountains of Big Hengan. Second direction to Sitsikar via Jalaner, Manjur and Haler fortified areas. Third strike deep south Manchuria. This beat B carried out. Forces of the Soviet Mongolian Horse mechanized groups under the command of General Pliev. First Far Eastern Front Nakhanchun towards the Trans-Baikal Front. On his way, Sufinhess and Tunin fortified areas of the Japanese and further inaccessible mountain taiga terrain. Second Far Eastern, its task, force an interaction with the Amur flotilla, Amur and Sungari rivers, and strike deep into the Manchuria. Same time, front troops in cooperation with the Pacific Fleet purify southern Sakhalin, Kuril Islands. Pacific Navy strikes Seisin ports. Russian and Yuki freeing Korea. Commander behind the Baikal Front, Marshal of the Soviet Union Malinovsky, Commander of the First Far Eastern Front, Marshal of the Soviet Union Miritsky, Commander of the Second Far Eastern Front, Perkarev Army General. Fire, though. By Hoot. By Mishanian. By Tuning. By Sufinhez. All fortified areas of the Japanese fire. By their thoughts. By their bond, by their communication, from earth, from water, from the air. Our Pacific Fleet went to the open sea, ready to face the enemy. The Amur military flotilla comes into action under the command of Counter-Admiral Antonov. Through Cupid guns and shells, through Cupid tanks, through Cupid. Here he is south shore of Cupid, from where for many years eagerly looked at our land, Japanese invaders. Main border fortified areas were breached. That's what's left of the underground concrete structures near the border station, where the Japanese especially fiercely resisted. Now each front faced a new task, characteristic of the Far Eastern theater of war. On the way of Marshal Marikov's troops lay difficult mountainous taiga terrain. Taiga. Only taiga beast and seasoned hunter passed through these places. Now here come the miners. Is there no mines under the clump? Dead stones under a millennial stone. Felling on a tree, way is free. The Japanese considered these places impassable, but still Suvorov said, "Where will the deer pass? There, and the Russian soldier will pass." And at this time, 1,500 kilometers from this taiga, moved towards the troops of the German Marshal, troops of Marshal Malinovsky, tank units of Colonel General Ravchenko, rushed to the mountain range. Big Hingen. Big Hingen. No taiga here, but here mountain steeps and abysses, heavy lifts, blurred roads and trails fog. You have to go through it all, but not only pass and move tanks and artillery, shells and food. There are still loopy roads in the foothills of Kingen, carved into the rocks, but soon they will end. Hingenyuch to his south. Spurs, moved Soviet-Mongolian horse mechanized group. Her way waterless desert, sands of heat and suffocating wains. Marshal of the Mongolian People's Republic Uzbolson, his troops and cavalry Colonel General Pliev, passed through the Mongolian steppes. Neither landmarks. No wells rate 200 grams of water per day. And here in the way of the troops of General Berkeyev's army, too much water. It rained heavily. Rivers came out of banks. Water flooded the fields. Huge territory, 200,000 square kilometers, turned into a quagmire. Meadows, highways, and towns became solid yellow messywem. Water spared only the embankments of railways, had to turn them into roads for tanks. Infantry was wading waist deep in the water, but did not stop our people water. How did not stop them nor taiga, neither desert nor mountains? Amur flotilla, She supported the troops moving along the swampy Sungari Plain. Monitors and armored boats were going up the Sungari, landing troops in coastal cities. City Zyamasi Amurians attack it from the water. Japanese stubbornly defending the city, like the other settlements along the vast front. At this time, Trans-Baikal Front came close to Khingan. New obstacle, Halun-Arshan fortified area fire. While our shells and bombs hammer, plowing up the Halun-Arshan fortifications, part of the troops of the Trans-Baikal Front goes around. Begins one of the most memorable episodes of this war. Transition over Khingan. Everything with yourself Brovian. Water is combustible, even wood. Everything is wild around, from well to well tens of kilometers. Narrow mountain road. She was given there. Infantry, Icon artillery. Go shepherd trails. Or even without trails at all. Day and night in rain and fog. So meter by meter. And you have to walk 300 kilometers. The entire width of the Khingan mountain range. Finally, the highest point of the pass. The descent begins. But he is even harder. Then rise all that people with incredible effort dragged upstairs. Now pull them down. Did not expect Japanese strategists. What to our command? With fights will be able to be transferred over narrow mountain roads. On impassable circles, a huge modern army. Khingan left behind. At enemy position in Manjur Valley, tanks of General Kravchenko collapsed. Cavalry of General Pleve. Infantry of General Lechimsky. The bulk of the troops of the Trans-Baikal Front rushed forward now by Manchurian fields to Chanchun. Not only Khingan left behind, but also Halun-Arshan fortified area. This area is like every other, were created by the Japanese with experience in Mazzeno and Siegfried lines. Here is the so-called dot ensemble. You only see one of his floors, and underground 3 more. In underground arsenals stored ammunition, which the Japanese brought here for years. 1,000 kilometers from Khingan, operated our Pacific Fleet under command of Admiral Yumashev. Course to ports of Korea Yuki, Razin Season. Enemy supply bases closest to the Japanese islands. Seisi. First rushed into battle sailor scouts. There's Marines behind them. Singh moved to the streets of the city. Every hill around town, the Japanese turned it into a fortress. Remoy tip. Gun forward. Embrasure. Season is free. From now on, those are free who wore shackles for years, who did not want Korea to be Japanese. By this time, the situation in the decisive areas has developed as follows. Troops of Marshal Malinovsky overcoming the passes of the Big Hengen and breaking through the Halunarshan fortified area, occupied cities Solon, Wanyamyao Taon, and were approaching Chanchun. From the west, Marshal Meretskov's troops moved to Chanchun. From the east approached the last major obstacle to the heavily fortified city of Maranchang. General Krylov's troops, walking on strike stride, approached the city. Advanced squads immediately came under fierce fire from Japanese troops, rushed into counterattack. North, the flank of the Japanese was hit by the troops of General Beloborodov. Numerous bunkers were located in cave excavations, but even there they took out the enemy daggers of our flamethrowers. General Beloborodov's troops broke into the city. The city was blazing smoke and ashes covered my eyes. Japanese snipers beat from every attic. That not a window, then a firing point. Japanese death sniper. Back in school, they were taught songs. In the spring, sow Asia with Japanese grass. Autumn mowing. These fortifications with their casemates, underground communication passages, concrete hangars, were the last obstacles for the troops of the First Far Eastern. The way to Chanchuni was chopped through. In Chanchun area, walking towards each other 1,500 kilometers, joined the shock wedges of the two main fronts. Thus, all North Manchuria turned out to be cut off and taken into ticks. The Kwantung army was surrounded and dissected. Its parts have lost touch with each other. After unsuccessful counterattacks, they began to surrender to our troops. Lost orientation and the Manchurian Emperor Pui himself. He was taken away from Chanchun capital with their ministers and suitcases. Plane landed in Mukden and was captured by our paratroopers with all ministers and advisors. Then the generals went. Mejiharov general was captured first. It was taken right at the command post by our tankers. Samurai Rush makes it close, from movie camera. And these were captured at their command posts, here as if not the same. And these came by themselves. Kwantung Army Command. Here is this one that gets licked. This is the Chief of Staff of the 3rd Army General Kanzira, Commander of the 3rd Kwantung Army General Murakami, Commander-in-Chief of the Kwantung Army General Yamada. And went generals. 20, 70. 148 Japanese generals surrendered to captured Red Army troops. The Kwantung Army surrendered. Best Army of Japan. This is them Gorlin songs about Japanese Baikal. "40 years were created by the Japanese military, selected imperial divisions, for war with our country. These divisions passed the practice of war in China. They were armed to the teeth with modern weapons and brought up in the spirit of rabid fanaticism. Unprecedented in strength and swiftness blow of the Red Army brought them to their knees, crushing not only the power of the Japanese army, but her vaunted samurai spirit. By our troops was taken prisoner more than 500,000 Japanese soldiers and officers. Our troops moving swiftly march. In a few days they took over the cities of Chunmukden, Sitsikar Harbin, Gairan-je, Diran, and Port Arthur. First time after 14 years of Japanese yoke. Free are out. Dozens of streets and squares. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Manjers. City Chanchan rally in honor of Red Army. Liberation Army. The Red Army marched through the cities and villages of Manchuria, soldiers of the great Soviet people. It was wars, who studied the art of victory on Hazaneya and Khalkhin Mountain, on the Dnieper and near Stalingrad, in tank battles near Kursk, in street fighting Budapest, in storming the fortification of Königsberg and Berlin, in air battles over Kuban and Warsaw. These people, hardened in the flames of battles with fascist aggressors, yes, only to these people, was on the shoulder to smash in a matter of days, million army of Japanese aggression and thus hasten the victory of the Allied powers in the East. 2nd of September, 1945, Tokyo Bay. Foreign Minister of Japan Mamoru Shigemitsu climbs aboard the American battleship Missouri, signing the Act of Unconditional Surrender. On behalf of the Allied nations, the act is signed by General MacArthur. From the United States of America, Admiral German. Representative of the Republic of China, General Sion. On behalf of England, Admiral Fraser. By the Supreme Commander, Stalin's Soviet Armed Forces. Act signed by Lieutenant General Woodwinko. He is accompanied by Major General Aviation Ravens and Rear Admiral Statsenko. Japan was defeated and admitted defeat. Kuril Islands. Now they belong to our country again. Our banner is developing over southern Sakhalin. Southern Sakhalin. Soviet ships entered the port of Arthur Bay. Risau Mountain, on her tower towering over the harbor, now the banner of our victory will be wound. Here it is already flying over the Quail Mountain. Command of all three fronts, led by Marshal Vasilevsky, arrived at the port of Arthur. This wreath will be laid on the graves of heroes, Port Arthur, their sons, and grandchildren, those who in heavy fighting came here through the mountains, taiga, and desert. On behalf of the command, wreath lays Marshal Vasilevsky. Sleep Eagles fighting. New generation of Soviet people. The twisted party of Lenin avenged you. On the fells of Manchuria, warriors sleep. And a simple and touching melody is remembered. An old song about this distant land. And back on watch by the great ocean became the watch of our homeland. Our people survived the hard years of war. But now each of us can say we won. History will not forget the liberation mission. Valiant Soviet soldiers. The long-awaited peace has come.